right. So welcome to Thought Leader Thursday. I'm Ken Kerry. I am co-founder and executive creative director at Screen. And I'm really excited about having our guest today on our webinar. And that's Abed Abusaleh. And Abed is the CEO of Havas Edge, and they're a performance media agency. And I'm not even going to try to get into explaining it all, Abed. Welcome. Thank you so much for being part of the webinar series. And why don't you tell me a little bit about who Havas Edge is and what it is that the space that you guys take in the media world.
Well, Ken, thank you. Pleasure to be here with you. I appreciate you having me on the show. So Havas Edge is an agency that's actually been around since 1992, and we are the largest performance marketing agency in the United States, and now expanding around the world through the Edge Performance Network. So we have a little bit over $1 billion a year in annual billings. Our client roster is about 125 clients on any given week that we run in the space, and our categories expand from everything from direct-to-consumer product sales to insurance, healthcare, auto, pretty much everything across the gambit. I think we pride ourselves on having a very diverse client background, and it gives us a wealth of knowledge in space in the market.
And I can say to the audience specifically when Abed talks about, the leader in the space, absolutely, the absolute leaders in the space, not only in billings, but in class of operation, I must say. Give our audience a little bit of context to performance marketing. What is performance marketing when you say leaders in performance marketing? What is that indifferent to, let's say, equity media?
So I think the best way to describe it is that there's all types of advertising out there. And I think the one that people are most familiar with is typically been referred to as brand advertising. The purpose of that advertising is to build consumer awareness, brand loyalty, aided and unaided awareness. The issue with that advertising, and there's no issue, it's been really effective for years. Right. It hasn't been as focused on customer acquisition. So I think the sweet spot for us and where we really have excelled is that the clients that come to us, they have a very specific goal, cost per acquisition. They have a number in mind that they're trying to hit, and they evaluate our success on how effectively we are at delivering against that performance, whether it's a cost per acquisition, it's a new member, it's a new client, it's a new product, it's a new trip that's booked. Those are how they evaluate us, and that's really kind of our core and our DNA from inception.
So, and I always explain it a little bit, kind of similar, but a little bit different. I think you'll agree to this, is that, we are judged by our KPIs. We have KPIs that we establish with our clients, and we're not looking for, point of sale POS data 6 months down the line. We're talking about data like real time, right? That's the difference.
Real time is right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Our clients, many of our clients, they look at dashboards, they look at reports, 30 seconds after their airings run to see how they're performing. And it's an interesting business that it sets up in the relationship we have with our clients, because the visibility and transparency is there, and the pressure is always on to deliver against those numbers. And it's an environment that we thrive on, and I think that our clients have grown to love.
And it's really the reality of business today. We are in such a new consumer economy where if we're going to allocate dollars to some marketing effort, we want to know now what's working, what's not working, not what 6 months later, right? And that's the biggest difference. And that's why the performance aspect to me is so vital in how you describe it.
I keep a board on my wall that you get to, write those phrases. And I think the way that I keep myself focused on it and our agency focused on it is 1 week at a time. That's really how we evaluate it. Our clients make a series of 1 week decisions to work with us, and they make a series of 1 week decisions to allow us to be their partner. And in any given week, they can make a decision that we're not the right partner for them. So continually, 52 weeks a year, we get 52 weeks, we get 52 chances a year to show them why they work with us. And we expect them to hold us accountable.
Awesome. We're the same way. We look at it as one project at a time, right? You make it work, you're a hero. It doesn't work, you're a dog. But luckily together,
exactly right.
Together we've been very successful. So, So I want to talk about the new media landscape for 2021. And what I think is really important to our audience here is the new white space, if you will, that, and I say new because it's new to a lot of people, but the new white space that Havas Edge has really championed, and you in particular have championed. Can you tell us a little about the full break, what that is, why it's different, and how it helps direct-to-consumer or campaigns scale? Because it's not as you know, and I think you'll get into, it's not a place to start, it's a place to scale. Or am I totally incorrect there?
It can actually go either way. I think it's important to understand the background and kind of where this has come from. The full break space, which actually wasn't originally called full break, about 5 years ago, we made a decision that we saw this kind of emerging medium that was in very much its infancy stages. And where that lived was a length of media that was unique and not really adapted and used by a lot of clients. There was a very small section of clients that were using media lengths that were in this 3 to 5 minute range. And one of the beauties about the range, and what I think I identified and our team has really embraced, is that one of the special things about that is it's the ability to control an entire commercial break. Commercial breaks on stations can go anywhere from 2 minutes long to about 5 minutes long. Those are your standard commercial breaks. And what we found and what we kind of saw is that in a lot of categories where there was a lot of competition, you would see insurance ads for 3 different companies in the exact same
in the same break.
in the same break. So it's kind of, you're looking at it like that seems pretty competitive and crowded. And the reason that we renamed it, it's been around for a long time, full break, but it's the ability to control the entire break. And about 5 years ago, we looked at it and said it had been used by some very direct-to-consumer companies, and they'd had a ton of success, but it was a very small portion of our billing, and it existed on a very small number of stations. It became my mission, and our mission at that time was we were going to expand the footprint, and we weren't going to take the idea this wasn't a scalable proposition or medium, and it was just something that you may want to try from time to time. I believe that it could be a meaningful part of clients' budgets and their interaction and engagement with the consumer. I believe that it allowed them to set themselves apart from their competitors. It allowed them to control the narrative in a lot of ways. And that extra minute or 2 minutes to sell was going to make a difference. And we had seen that. And what you've seen as a result is what was a probably totally $40 million space in 2015. This year is going to crest well over 250 million total in money spent in this 3 to 5 minute advertising. And that's 5 years,
in just 5 years. Wow.
In 5 years, in a space in television, linear television, which has been thought to be static and declining, to see something grow at that level, I knew we were onto something in the early days of it.
And I want to give a little context to the audience is when Abed talked about that commercial break. So we all know what it's like when you're watching a show and they go to commercial and 3 minutes later, you've gone through Taco Bell and insurance companies, and you don't even remember what you saw. Then you come back to the show. That's about 3 to 5 minutes. And what Abed is saying is owning that 3 to 5 minutes specifically to sell your product. So that viewer is not like knee-jerked out of it. They're like into something. So you're serving them something that is relative and meaningful to them versus just hoping they're going to want a taco at some point, right?
Exactly. And when those ads and when they're cluttered together may serve as a reminder, but you're competing not only in a show, not only in a market, in a break. So when you're able to isolate and control the entire break, the average consumer may not watch an entire commercial break. So you really want to design, and that's really where you've come in over the years, is how do we structure creatives that they may not watch the full 3 to 5 minutes, but regardless of what part that they come in, we know we're going to own the break and we're going to get some part of their attention. And sometimes, especially when it's the beginning, they may carry through and realize, wow, I just watched a 3 minute advertising, and it's storytelling.
Exactly.
And that's in the normal commercial environment. It's not a reminder. It's not a brand play. It's storytelling. And once you can engage somebody on a story, you see their acquisition numbers get dramatically better, upwards of 30%.
Right. And that's where it goes back to the performance aspect, where you say it's not a reminder that hopefully you'll do something down the line. This is a piece of advertising specifically placed for you to say, oh, that looks interesting. That solves my problem. You've told me a story about this product or service that solves my problem. I need to take action. And that's the big difference. And that's where the performance comes. Because if they take action, it performs. If they don't take action, it doesn't perform. Going back to 1 week at a time, right?
Yep, exactly. It's always 1 week at a time. And, clients usually they'll be a part of their buy sometimes, but we have had clients that have such a good experience with it. They've isolated that down into the only lengths that they use. So we know that it works. Yeah. And it does. And it happens, especially, I think the more acquisition, some clients are solely focused on acquisition. They evaluate their entire media buy by acquisition. There are other clients that are evaluating the brand impressions that they have, the impact that they're having on the audience, the frequency that they're using, and the acquisition. So I think it's a medium that can be used as part of a media strategy, or in some cases, even the entire media strategy.
Right. And when you say, impart on to the consumer, I mean, that could be lift at retail. That could be lift at Amazon. That could be, there are so many different channels that we have today that you can monitor those through these types of media purchases.
Exactly. I mean, your average consumer, they're watching television with a phone in their hand.
Yep.
There is, it's very rare that you see the one screen experience anymore. And I think that one of the things where this has played, especially into the online retailing space, is I'm able to tell you the story about why my product is different than other products that are out there. And it's oftentimes what you'll see is that the search numbers go way up during, even in the middle of the advertisement. It's like, what is that? What is that product? What is that offer? Why is this travel site different than that one? And you see that happen all the time in the metrics we use to evaluate success.
Right. And that, as you talk about customer acquisition, you get them into that funnel, and that is a KPI that's proving that ad got somebody to do something, whether they purchased or not, or we got their attention. Now where they're in the ecosystem, and then the real work starts with the remarketing and all that kind of stuff for people who haven't converted. But that's another layer of it.
One of the most interesting things we've seen about it, especially with clients that run their full break advertising in conjunction with their shorter lengths, 30-second, 60-second advertising, easy to establish a baseline on how your performance and acquisition costs are doing on your 30 and 60-second advertising. What is so fascinating to see, and I think the extra benefit of it is, while as a standalone medium, it's successful and it's a great acquisition vehicle. When you add in full break to an existing 30 and 60 campaign, you see improved performance on the 30 and 60 campaign as well. They're educated from the full break. These reminder message resonates. And it's like, I've seen that. I know what that is. We've seen those metrics, and it's fast.
Wow. So when you say that, and that is, I know you were just kind of was on the peripheral about that, but that's really strategic media buying within that 30-second time to that specific consumer, right?
Absolutely.
So the question I have, and one of the things that we get a lot is, okay, so I know what a 15-second ad costs. I know what a 30-second ad costs. Are you telling me that a 3-minute full break is 6 times the cost of a 30? How does that? It is.
It is. So usually, I mean, there can be some discounts, but I think for the purposes of setting expectations, you would assume that they are about 6 times the cost of a 30. That's exactly the right way to look at it. And I think that's what's most impressive about the performance metrics on it is that, you are paying 6 times more for a 3-minute than you are paying for a 30-second spot. But when your acquisition cost, apples to apples, can be 20 or 30% lower on the media you just paid 6 times for, that's how we evaluate value of media. And I think that's the true measure.
And then you look at it that way and you go, that was a pretty darn good bargain when you look at it that way. So tell me, so who is full break for specifically? Where do you see that specifically in a media mix, businesses, types of business? Who's it for? Because people who listen to this, Abed, are all every spectrum of business.
I think the first metric that you really want to look at as, should I be investing in this project? Should I be investing in this type of creative and adding this to my media mix? Is I would recommend that for customers or clients or marketers that are really primarily focused on acquisition over brand. I want to have tangible advertising that's measurable, and I'm looking for the most efficient vehicle or medium or length, whether it's Facebook, it's short form, it's 2 minutes, 3 minutes, a long form, all the different varieties of advertising out there. My primary focus is acquisition. I think this is an acquisition vehicle more than it is a brand or an awareness vehicle. So I think that's the first qualifier that I would look for, whether it's I want new customers to take flights, I want to be able to sell more product, I want home security, cars, whether I'm looking for leads. I think that's number one. The other is there are some products that are very simple and there are some messages that you can easily tell in 30 seconds. And it doesn't necessarily matter it's so easy to understand. So you 30 seconds is plenty to do it. Where you have a product or a client that's going to benefit from storytelling, why mine over the competition? There's a lot of competition in this space. Why am I special? Why am I better than the competition? What's the experience like with my brand, with my product? How will the consumer benefit more? Where you can get into engaged storytelling and they'll benefit from that. It is massively successful in all of those mediums. And I think the final is we have very, very competitive spaces out there. There's very rare that you'll find a business or a sector that has no competitors. Mm-hmm. And in some sectors, you have hundreds of competitors. If you think about healthcare, or if you think about insurance, or you think about taxes, or you think about travel, you think about car companies, there's this desperate need to stand out from the crowd in many ways. And for those clients, it is a huge opportunity to be able to own your space, own your message, and be able to tell a longer story than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. I want to draft out that because we have a question from the audience from Ramon, and he talks about, how different would creative be for full break versus a 30-second spot? And I think you just kind of, that was the tip of the iceberg there, that some things you can just do really, really quickly, but creatively, longer than 30 seconds, and you have more of a story to tell, more of a differentiation of a message, things to that effect, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll chime in on that a little bit, Abed, because we get that a lot. And where, I can say, go to this travel site and, get 20% off. I mean, what else, what more do you need to know, right? Or I could say, go to this travel site. We specialize in Italy. We specialize in this. We create a consumer experience that's nothing. You just can't do that in 30 seconds. Now you take some time and now you get a much more qualified person who really wants to know about this specific travel company because it fits their specific needs. And they know, why would I even go check out with Travelocity or something like, because it didn't even offer what these guys have. So a little bit more of the story to be told.
And I think that there's one other layer of that as we talk about the 2021 media landscape and what's going to be different in a year like 2020 where everything has been different. and there's no arguing that. In January and February, travel was on top of people's minds. It wasn't if I'm going to take a trip. It's how much do I want to spend on the trip? Which places haven't I been to yet? There was never a consideration for experience or safety or what the product was or what the experience was when you got there. And if you're talking about storytelling for an industry that has really only scratched the surface in this medium to begin with, travel as we go into next year, and hopefully we have vaccines that come aboard and we start to get back to our new version of normal and we start to move forward and that starts to come back. I think there's a ton of value in travel companies being able to express the things that just because we've moved past the pandemic doesn't mean that some of the things that we became nervous about or that were on our minds in the pandemic, such as cleanliness, experience, customer service, flexibility in terms of travel arrangements and not stiff fees or cancellations, airlines and hotels and travel sites and restaurants. I think especially when you're looking on the national level, there's a huge amount of value into explaining, here's how we've adapted. And as we come into next year, it's enabled. When you talk about storytelling, it's relationship building at that point.
Yeah, I totally I'm on with you there because I'm looking and going, and you and I talked a little bit about the travel space, and I thought, if you could spend 3 minutes talking about, what you're doing as a company that's going to make me safe as a traveler, how I can feel comfortable not having cancellations and things like that, educate me. You've just made to your point, you've made a relationship to me. Why wouldn't I go with you guys when I have no idea what goes on with the other companies and I'm going to spend so much time and effort trying to figure that out when you just laid it out for me?
Yeah. I mean, and you see a lot of even the airline ads, they always focus on one benefit, but there's many benefits that they all pride themselves on doing. So no baggage fees, no luggage fees, no cancellation policies, flexible travel schedules, multi-destination. This gives you an opportunity to talk about the basket of the offering that you have and why it's special.
Yep.
And why you more than anything else. And if you look at it, if everybody else is working in 30-second increments on the one singular benefit, and you can talk about the suite of benefits that maybe everyone has, you've given yourself an opportunity with a medium that you can also use not just on linear television, but you can also use over the top. You can use online, on YouTube, on social media. You have an asset that you can use a lot of places to engage your audience.
Right. And then the one thing that we do in performance marketing is we're going to give that little incentive at the end that's going to get somebody to do something now. And that goes back to the whole performance aspect, right? Right. So as we talk about 2021 and things being different, talk a little bit about utilizing the full break as a way to scale. Like, you start with a long form, you go to short form, you add in, full break or whatever, because specifically, Abed, we have a client that we share together, Blink Home Security. Now, here's a company that has to take on industry icons like ADT and, all these, yet they've broken through because they've hit it in so many different ways and so many different lengths, so many different places. Talk about how you guys maneuvered and worked with adding full break to the long form, the short form, and creating a full circle campaign.
The full break space is a good match and pairing for whether you're coming from a short form and you're looking to go into longer lengths, or a longer length unit and you're looking to get into shorter lengths. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of this medium that exists in between. And I look at it and say that usually clients, they'll start with, if you're talking about a short form campaign that's starting with them, they've had success with their 30s or 60s, even maybe sometimes their 2 minutes.
Right.
What they do find at certain points is that their station mix, their performance, they can start to burn out on certain stations. They can start to really subscribe to the law of diminishing returns.
Right. Attrition.
And while they want to keep, attrition, and you start getting what was a 25 station mix, in a year and a half is a 15 station mix, and now you're at a 9 station mix. And now you're making these very hard decisions of, do I invest unprofitable dollars to keep my awareness and my television spend up high, or can I bring in a new? And what I would say is that for those short form clients, this advantage where you get this 25 or 30% efficiency bump in the longer unit length, mm-hmm. will remove the bottom 25% of your buy and reallocate those dollars into this space. And it'll help balance it out in a lot of ways, because they do truly perform differently. And sometimes what comes as wear and fatigue on your 30s or your 60s, you will see a rebirth in many ways in what you do and what you're seeing with your 3 to 5 minutes, because it is a new experience. And usually the creatives are different and the messaging is different. So it is kind of this rebirth in many ways for that. And then on the longer form side of it, long form unit lengths have been a tremendous driver of success and profitability for clients for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. And one of the areas with that is that in the long form space, there are still some networks that, either due to their affiliate agreements or that, or the agreements that they have with their providers, they can't actually offer 30-minute programming. So when you're lucky enough to have 30 minutes, you've obviously seen a tremendous amount of success. This allows you to go into a whole new world with still storytelling, and be able to expand truly the list of stations that exist in a long form campaign. And now you almost have a brand new campaign on a group of stations nobody's seen. And I think that's one of the things that you saw with Blink was, wow, we have this whole network of stations, and they're some of our most profitable stations we have. We've loved our long form. It's been amazing, but it's allowed us to scale. It's allowed us to limit, and it's allowed us to hedge our risks in so many ways that I think it's been a huge part of their buy.
And it's what was wonderful for us, because when we're talking about this home monitoring system, you can really tell a really convincing, compelling story in 3 minutes and have an offer. And if you want a little bit more information, you might be able to go to the website, or you might catch it in the long form. But it's just enough time to really get a complex product out there and understandable and want to take action. And, if you left it up just to 30s, man, that's tough. That is tough with all the other big guys out there. And you don't have those media marketing wallets, right?
It's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
It can be absolutely a heavy lift. And I think when you balance it with the fact that middle length, that full break unit length can actually improve performance and conversions in some of your other lengths, it's really like it's a relief valve in so many ways, and it can ignite campaigns.
So give me an example of, so let's say my audience is a home monitoring system. That's who I want to market to. But I can't get, and I don't know if this is correct, so correct me, please. I can't get 30 minutes on the Hallmark Channel because, but I'd love to talk to those people, but I can get 3 minutes. Is that how it works? Where you're saying you can't get there with 30, but you can get there here, and now you get that audience that you read, that coveted audience you really want?
Absolutely. I think the biggest area where you see that is on the news networks mostly, and this is one that everybody really wants to rush into.
Yeah.
News networks, because a lot of it is live programming.
Yep.
And it's not recorded. They don't have the ability, with the exception of CNBC, to run long form programming because of the nature of their program, Right. And yet they all have the ability to be able to run at least 3 minutes, in some cases 5 minutes in length, throughout the year and in different day parts. And so you can have a campaign that's been hugely successful. Take the top 5 campaigns in long form, and by introducing now a 3 minute into the mix, you can get into an entire segment of stations and a whole new audience that may be similar to the profile you've had success with in the long form, and now talk to that audience in 3 minutes, with the benefit of having a lot of weight against the long form. So maybe they've seen it, and right. Now you're getting it. That almost serves as your reminder message there. So right. They can work in conjunction, and it does give diversity. It gives expansion. It gives optionality. And those things are paramount in a world that changes so rapidly.
Right, right. The ability to be able to get to an audience you couldn't before, that you really want based on restrictions, is, to me, that's the beauty of the whole full break right there, is getting to people that are watching TV. Because people say, oh, Abed, I'm sure you've heard it a million times. Are people watching TV? I mean, let's let that cat out of the bag.
And the TV is dying, and there's no reason to be on television anymore. And you hear that all the time. I think people are changing how they ingest content. And I think that you've seen that in we've seen that in the numbers, that you have seen a slight decline in the television, the standard linear audience. But they've now also, but it doesn't mean they're not watching content via video. They may be watching it on YouTube. They may be watching it on Facebook. They may be watching it through Hulu. They may be watching it through Roku. So yes, it's evolved, but it's just shifted. It hasn't eroded. It's shifted.
Correct.
And one of the things, especially as it relates to the 3 minute length, is that something that as we've evolved linear television as an agency, our focus has now shifted on how to get some longer unit lengths into some of these new emerging mediums. And we're starting to see that as well. So we kind of have the roadmap for where it's at. And now we have a lot of clients with a ton of interest in it. Like, they love the length. Yeah. Because we talked about how long form can expand the footprint through a full break. For short form, many of these, I wish we had some more time so we could tell more about why we're the right fit. Yeah. So they love that. Now that the audience has shifted, they want their plans to shift with them. And that's going to be one of our other focuses in 2021 and beyond.
And we are so aligned there. Absolutely. And one of the great things that we talk about with clients when we talk about full break and talk about short form and long form is that, you have this block of time, let's just say 3 minutes, and you've refined that message, and you've done it really well in long form. You can refine it down to 3, and you can multiply it in 2 and 60s. But the point is, you're not starting from scratch. You know what works. That's key. You know what works. And then you start differentiating it towards the places that you want to do it. And that's where I think that's one of the things that clients don't understand, is that once you've got that working mechanism, you're in such a great spot to either go longer, shorter, or just expand your full break time length as well. I agree.
Yeah. We were talking about a client the other day, Ken, and you were telling me about the parts and the different types of creatives over the years that have worked, and whether it was animation or whether it was the testimonial side of it, or it was the storytelling about the product benefits. And I think we talked about in there is a perfect blend of what a 3 minute creative can look like, right, so that you can use the best features and benefits of that and create almost the super spot.
Yeah.
That now encompasses all the stuff that we learned have worked.
I love that. The super spot. I'm going to steal that, Abed, if you don't mind.
You can have it. All yours.
I have 2 more questions. One of them is, asks a little bit more of you, so I'll ask that first. So the question is, so what are the top 5 things businesses must know to be successful in performance DRTV? What are really the question? Maybe the question you should be asking your agency, or questions you should be asking yourself. What are those 5 most important things? Because we want to give value to people we're talking to, Abed. So they walk away with these things I need to know. And if I don't know them, talking to someone like yourself or someone on your team would be really beneficial.
If you look at the most successful performance marketers over the course of history, they all have, number one thing they all have in common, they know exactly where they make money. They know what their break even is. They know what their metrics are, and they know how it relates to all the other parts of their business, so that if I'm able to understand my acquisition cost, they have to understand what success is. Where right. You and I have both seen clients fall down is a very amoeba-like understanding of what the true number is. And then they run a campaign, and I think it might have worked.
Yeah.
And that's a real challenge. I think that's number one. I think the other thing, regardless of whether, and I think this is what they need to lean on their agency for, is we're long beyond the days of where everybody calls a phone number, and you basically can tell how many phone calls came in. The measurement piece of this and where it touches as it relates to Amazon, as it relates to your social media footprint, as it relates to the web, as it relates to search, all of this stuff ties together. And rarely do you see many campaigns that have phone numbers, or if they do, it's very much not the primary source of where they get most of their activities. Mm-hmm. It's important to have an agency that has invested in the technology and invested in the process to understand the attribution of where this comes from. It's important to pick that partner, because if you're relying on a single signal, and we know that they can emerge in 17 different signals, it's important to understand the attribution of that. So I think it's important, A, to understand what does success and profitability look like? What's my target? And then B, do I have the right fly trap to catch everybody, no matter where they come in, and lean on that agency to be able to provide that? I think that's number one. And I think the other thing that you have with clients is, especially with some Fortune 500 companies that allocate and budget dollars annually or quarterly, plan for success. I think it's important to plan for success. I think you and I know our expectation is that it's going to be successful. And I just saw this happen actually 6 months ago. We had a Fortune 500 client that launched a full break advertising spot that was wildly successful in a very crowded category, but their fiscal budgets had allocated the test budget and slightly more. They had never planned for success, and there was a 3-month wait then before they could actually reinvest those dollars. So I think that
what a momentum kill.
I think that, especially when we're talking to CMOs and we're talking to CEOs around the country, be ready when you have something that's successful that you can immediately reinvest those dollars into that, capitalize on the momentum, and refine as you go. And especially in an area like this, there are going to be a lot of fast followers once they see something work. And you can count like a clock. 16 weeks after you launch, your competitor is going to be right behind you. And that's usually like production timeline, the creation. It's like 16 to 20 weeks. You're going to see somebody else from your category in the space. I think those are the 3 most critical things that clients need to understand when they're going to get into space. And and it's no small part of it. Expect success and be ready to invest in that, so you can capitalize on what you've just now added to your media mix.
So I asked you 5, and let me throw out 2 that I think that there. One of them is when you're thinking about a performance marketing campaign or direct to consumer campaign, whatever you want to call it, you got to work with people who've been there, done that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, how important is that? Would you say for potential people to understand? Is that one of the 5 things you need to know?
I'm glad you brought that up. I actually missed that one. When you're trying to go into something and it's as sensitive as personal as dollars, which are always scarce. I mean, there's not an unlimited amount of money, no matter who the marketer is. Everybody they want their money to work as hard as possible. Do you really want an agency, a producer, a creative shop? Do you really want them learning on your money? I mean, you wouldn't, that's just not how you would do it. You wouldn't go to, if you were going to pick up a financial investor or if you were going to go to a stockbroker, you wouldn't really want to go to somebody who's like, yeah, I think I can figure this out.
Right.
I think that would make you nervous.
Yeah, not on my dime.
Me, not on my dime. Like, hey, I get that you probably have done, you were a great life insurance salesman, but that doesn't mean that you're ready to invest in the market for me on my behalf. And that's really what this is. It's an investment. And for me, I think you really want to go with the folks that have been there and have the roadmap, and they're not learning with your money. That would always make me nervous. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah. So just in review, so first one is know your KPIs. What are your customer acquisition costs? Understand what success is. The second one is understand that you have to work with a partner who has reporting and attribution nailed. Because if you can't follow the money, if you will, you don't know what's working and what's not working, and you have to have those set ahead of time. Plan your budgets for success would be number 3. Plan for success. Number 4, partner with someone who's been there, done that, understands, how to scale and understands where the road mines are. That you just know something's going to come, but you've been there, done that. And you can say, hey, let's avoid this or whatever. And I think number 5, Ab, if you don't mind me adding on to this, is, when you're talking about a direct to consumer campaign, you're really trying to find the right partner, somebody who's invested in it as long as you are, because our businesses are the same. Is that, if it works, we're going to have a great relationship. And the only way things can work, it's like a marriage. You got to have a good partnership. You got to be able to trust the other person and trust this person knows about their product, but then trust me that I know how to buy the time and trust me that I know how to create the media, the message. And you got to partner together because when those work together, how many times would you say it's successful? It's when you get this, I bet you can say 9 times out of 10, it's never good and it's a painful process.
I think it's used in our business, and you and I have talked about it before. There's a gigantic difference between partner and vendor.
Yes.
And if you're looking for a vendor and it's all just do what I'm telling you to do. I mean, you're not buying a shirt from Nordstrom. Right. You're investing in a business where the success relies on, especially in what you do. In the production phase, like one of your processes that I've always admired, you get deep into the businesses. You want to know everything. You want to be a customer. You want to go through the funnel. That's how I think that's been one of the things that you do is it is not just, we don't just show up, roll the ball out on the floor and go out and score 40 points.
Right.
There's a process, right? Yeah. You do a lot of prep in understanding the businesses. And I think that's with anything. You want somebody that understands your businesses because it's not always going to go great. There are going to be potholes along the way. There are going to be unforeseen things like pandemics or war breakouts or fiscal stimulus, disasters or both good and bad.
Right.
And I think the more that your partner knows your business, the more that they can quickly support you to pivot. And it's a week at a time, which means that you could come up a good week and then head into an unforeseen thing. And the more they know your business, the more they know how to help you as a waiting for you to ask them.
Exactly. And then everybody's moving in the right direction and feeling comfortable about it. And we figure it out together. And that's how both of our firms have been successful together and simultaneously. So Abed, in closing, first of all, I want to thank you very much for the time today. And I want everyone to understand that to get 60 minutes of Abed's undivided attention is very rare. And I'm really thankful for that. And everybody here should be really thankful that you glean that knowledge because, to be a leader in this business for so many years and to be an innovator like yourself, and to continue to grow in this business and make this business much more robust than it's ever been. It takes a special firm, takes a special individual. So I really appreciate that from you, Abed, very much.
Ken, thank you, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come onto this webinar and talk about something that I know we're both really passionate about, and that we really are dying to share with the world. Thank you for putting this together, and for your partnership and friendship over the years. It's been amazing.
Thank you. So, Abed, if anybody wants to learn more about this full break or performance media in general and how effective it could be for their business now and in the future, because as we both know, direct to consumer is only getting bigger. The world is changing fast, and technology consumer behavior is feeding right into it. So as they look forward, how would they get a hold of you if they had any questions or anything they'd like to know? So that might be something they want to invest into their business.
I would encourage anybody that's interested to email me directly at abed.abusaleh@havasedge.com or to find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Abed Abusaleh. So I always love talking about our business. I always love talking about the space. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody wants. So feel free to contact me directly. It's never a bother anytime, day or night. I don't sleep all that much to begin with.
And just for the audience, ABED, Abusaleh. That's how Abed spells his name. Abed, thank you very much. And anybody who takes the opportunity to talk to the CEO of a business like this is in good hands. And it's a great opportunity to have that connection with you. Hey, thanks so much. And I look forward to I definitely want to get into this later on this year, because there's a lot of things that we've got cooking together that we can share with the audiences that we can't now, but it will prove that what we're talking about isn't theory. It really works, and we've been successful doing it together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken, and thank you for the time today.
All right, my friend. Take care.
You too.